For better or worse, The Outer Worlds is the perfected Fallout game that people have been waiting for. What's up, guys? Veteran Gamer here. And after about a year and a half, I finally decided to play The Outer Worlds. And to be honest, the reason why it took me this long to take this plunge is because I am no fan of the Fallout franchise. What made me take the plunge was at E3 at the Xbox presser when they debuted the Outer Worlds 2 trailer, a trailer that I felt was probably the best video game trailer I have ever seen. So in saying that, because the Outer Worlds was on GamePass and I'm a new subscriber to it, I said, you know what, I am going to give this game a chance. And sure enough, I gave it a shot, and right out of the gate, the one thing that I noticed is that the visuals, although they are good, they're not great. What makes it stand out to me is the actual art style. I don't think from a technical standpoint in terms of like polygon count and level of detail is anything special. I just think the art style is really good, and Obsidian does a really good job of making the game look pretty without being too taxing on the hardware. Aside from this, because this game is made by Obsidian, it is an RPG and it is based off like the Fallout formula. This game has a heavy emphasis on story as well as being an RPG. This game has a complete utter freedom with how you progress. After you see your opening cutscene, you get to the game's very detailed and in-depth character creator. A character creator where you choose not only the aesthetics of your character and the background information of your character, but you also lay down the foundation for your character's build. And because as you make your character, it will tell you to put in your stats to start you off. And these stats, especially the perks, they can't really be touched from the initial build. Further stat points can be respec'd with a fee, but your initial creation, once you create it and you put the initial parameters in, you're locked into that. So it's a very good idea to make sure that you have an idea of what kind of character you want to make as you're making it. But on top of that, this is an RPG first and foremost, and the best part about this game is the RPG elements. Whether it's the skills that you put in, whether it's the perks that you use, there is a lot of depth and a lot of freedom. And again, as I stated, you can respec your character for a small fee. So there's a lot of freedom. And on top of that, there's freedom in terms of how the story progresses. Yes, the story is a linear story, but how you get there's totally up to you. You can kill an NPC that didn't look at you the right way. If you don't like this NPC, you can kill him, and the story will just continue. And nothing is like, it doesn't stop you and say, "Oh, game over, you killed this NPC." No, it just moves on. And that's the best part about this game, is all the RPG elements, right? Whether it's the stats, whether it's the loot. I mean, the loot in this game, there is loot everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And if it's red and you're saying, "Hey, you're going to steal this," steal it anyways. Make sure no one's looking and steal it anyways. Or you can really just not care. And if someone questions you, you can either, lie, bribe, persuade your way, or hell, you can just kill them and just shut them up. Like, the freedom that you have on how you get to the end of the game is utterly fantastic. And it's something that I wish more games would adopt. However, not everything is honky-dory, if you will. My main issues with the game is that even though there is lots of loot and lots of things to steal, none of the loot stood out to me. Like, none of the weapons or gear was amazing to me. None of the aesthetics was like, "Oh my god, like I gotta have this piece of armor, I gotta have this gun." Nothing really stood out. They were functional, and that's where a lot of the issues that I had with this game is that a lot of it is, well, functional. As you play through the game, the controls, they feel good, they play good, but nothing stands out to me, especially when it comes to the shooting mechanics. The mechanics of the game itself are just functional. Like, I've played many shooters, and my standards for the mechanics are very high, and these mechanics, they're just functional. They're not bad, but they're not great. At the same time, the combat of this game is weak, in my opinion. I mean, very, very, very weak. As in, regardless of how far you get in terms of your progression and what level, a level 2 character doesn't feel any different than a level 40 character. Like, you don't get cool abilities like you do in a game like Cyberpunk or Mass Effect. You don't get cool weapons, things that were you collect or you level up and you're like, oh, I want this or I want that, and these are cool things. You don't get any of that. Where the Outer Worlds shines is things like your engineering stats, where you can take a weapon and upgrade it over and over and over again. You could find one weapon and just keep upgrading it. You also have dialogue. Dialogue is a very strong skill tree in this game, as it allows you to get options. You can bribe your way, you can lie your way, you can persuade. Having those options are great, but from a combat standpoint, it doesn't do anything for you. And that's the thing. The Outer Worlds is a game where the RPG side of things is good, but the actual gameplay is lackluster. I find that, the enemy types, there's the same enemy types. The weapons, yes, there's weapons that do fire damage, there's weapons that do lightning damage, there's energy weapons, heavy weapons, but none of the weapons were like Johnny's pistol from Cyberpunk, which was a badass pistol that had its own reload animation. None of the abilities. There's no abilities for you. Your companions, the companions that you can recruit throughout the game, their abilities are cool. They even have cool animations when you use the abilities. Thankfully, if you do get annoyed with that, you can always just turn it off. But your companions' abilities are cool, yet I'm thinking, where's my abilities? Where's my character's cool abilities? And it's just not there. And to me, it held the combat back significantly. On top of that, as you play the game will offer you these flaws. A flaw is basically like a trait based on how you're playing. If you take a lot of lightning damage, just say, hey, your flaw is lightning damage. They will offer you the opportunity to accept a debuff in exchange for a perk to help you get your perks faster. To me, I personally avoided this because, why would I want to take 20% more lightning damage just for one perk point? The trade-off just wasn't good enough. Another issue I had was when it comes to the quests and the way the quest works was you would have a main quest line that will sit there and say, hey, we need you to get this item from this person. So you go to that person, and that person will sit there and say, well, I will give you this item if you do this for me. And this quest that they give you goes under the side quest tab, not the main quest tab. So when you look at your quest log, it's like, oh, main quest, go here, talk to this person. And then you have to go under the side quest tab to sit there and say, well, this person wants you to do this to get that item. It just made it very clustery and not organized. And when you go through your menus, it's you have to, it makes it more complicated than it needed to be. If it's part of the main story, it should just go under the main quest. It's just a personal gripe that I had, but it is the way it is. My opinion on The Outer Worlds is that it is a game that you will enjoy more if you're a fan of the Fallout franchise. If you're not a fan of the Fallout franchise, you will not enjoy this game as much. I know friends that don't enjoy Fallout that did enjoy this, but I'm in the camp where, because I don't like Fallout, I didn't really have a good time with The Outer Worlds. It's not a bad game by any means, but it's just not great. It's not a game that stands out to me, and it is totally missable. And unless there's significant improvements to the combat of Outer Worlds 2, I would probably skip that game personally. I'm going to be giving The Outer Worlds a 6.5 out of 10. As I said, it's not that it's a bad game. It's a game that you will probably enjoy if you're a fan of Fallout. If you're not, you might feel that it's a little bit lacking. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.